Welcoming everyone to today's session. Today's Zoom meeting with 5 students from Ukraine who are currently enrolled in Canadian universities. The practice of studying abroad is not a new one. Researchers have confirmed that studying abroad is a positive way to acquire a second language and also to develop positive attitudes toward the second language. Researchers for the last 30 years have also widely accepted how study abroad promotes the development of intercultural competency. As researcher Darla Deardorff reports, study abroad offers opportunities for students to gain knowledge of others, knowledge of themselves, skills to interpret and relate, skills to discover and or to interact, opportunities to value others' values, beliefs, and behaviors, and to relativize oneself. Our participants today are all from Ukraine and are all studying abroad in Canadian universities. I would like to thank them for volunteering their time and reflections for this session. I know we are all looking forward to hearing their impressions of studying in 2 different styles of post-secondary education. I would like to begin by inviting them to introduce themselves. So I will first ask Maxim, who is local at the University of Alberta, to introduce himself. Maxim, please share with us where you are, where your home university is and what you're studying and where you're currently studying.
My name is Maxim. I am a student at Lviv Polytechnic National University in Ukraine, and I stem from Chernivtsi, also in Ukraine, and I'm studying computer science. My main university is still Lviv Polytechnic National University. However, I am enrolled in the University of Alberta at the course, and I'm currently studying at 2 universities.
Thank you. Bogdan Naida, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bogdan Naida. I'm a first-year master's student at the University of Toronto, doing research in healthcare domain, especially in the Hospital for Sick Children, which is a pediatric hospital in Toronto. Previously, I finished my undergraduate studies in Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, a major in artificial intelligence.
Thank you very much. Dmytro Lopushansky, please.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see so many people joined. My name is Dmytro. I'm a current undergraduate final year computer science student at Ukrainian Catholic University and doing exchange studies at the University of Toronto. Also, I'm working on the research. We worked with Bogdan before at the same institution, which is the Hospital for Sick Children, and we share the same supervisor as well.
Thank you. And Katerina Rudenko, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is Katerina Rudenko. I'm a student enrolled in international relations at National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy in Kyiv. And in Canada, I work at School for Resource and Environmental Studies as a research intern.
Thank you. And Marta Dvulyat, please.
Hello, nice to see you all. My name is Marta. I was born and raised in Lviv, Ukraine, and I'm also currently studying in Lviv National University. I'm 4th year student of international relations there. But in Canada, first I was a MITEX research intern in University of Victoria, but now I'm enrolled in University of Alberta in political science.
Thank you very much. So we have a nice variety of students from different parts of Ukraine, from different institutions in Ukraine, and also studying at different places in Canada. So our first question for each participant is, how are you adjusting to studying in Canada? What are some of the challenges that you are facing and how are you overcoming them? I think we'll go in the same order. So Maxim, please.
Okay, So for me, studying in Canada had a rather long period of adjusting because I do study in two universities and sometimes I do have to pass my grades at night. However, in terms of study system and in terms of education, it was for me quite easy to understand the way the study here goes. There were some nuances which I didn't understand at first, like, for example, professors' office hours, which are not common in Ukraine, or the way professors attend and perceive their classes. That is also different. However, those are minor changes, and these are easily overcomable if you start attending actually the classes. However, the main things are important in both countries. That is much work, much study, and don't forget to attend your classes.
Okay, thank you. Bogdan.
I'm just in Canada. The main challenges I have faced are first, professors in Canada are really open to any research that you would like to do. In Ukraine, for example, I asked my previous professor to do some research, but she answered that it's kind of hard, challenging. We need more than 6 months to start something. But in Canada, it's really easy. You can ask every professor that you've met during the studies, and they are okay with you to do everything you're interested in. The next challenge was the education system, that in Canada you can select courses that you would like to take. Yeah.
Okay,
Those are the main challenges I faced.
thank you very much. And Dmitry.
Yeah, for me, I think the challenges were not that difficult to face. So some of them were that, I guess, I'm just from the generation of Ukrainian students that got affected by the COVID, and our studies went online, and then the war started. So I basically experienced offline in-person studies only during not even my complete first year. So here in Canada, the studies are back in person when I came in May this year. So that just required me some getting used to attending classes in person again. Then I guess the course enrollment system, which Bogdan mentioned, for exchange, for undergraduate exchange students, it worked a bit tricky. So we didn't have the option to go to be enrolled in the first phase. Rather, we needed to wait for the primary students to be enrolled, and then only we could participate in the selection. So that was a bit tricky, and also choosing the classes to have the right amount of load and combining all of them with the different schedules. In Ukraine, it's usually the classes are planned for us and we just take them, and here it's your responsibility to choose the classes that you want to take and plan them accordingly. And I guess getting the documents right, it wasn't too difficult. Applying for study permit in advance, filling all of the papers, but that wasn't of any difficulty. And I guess studying in English was also not completely new to me, because back home at my university we had a few classes in English. So here just I needed to get used to the fact that everything is in English. There is like no option to have Ukrainian anywhere. So, but other than that, I think these were my challenges.
Thank you. And Katerina, please.
Yeah, so about challenges, certainly nothing seems to be harder than abandoning your family in Ukraine and having to earn money to sustain them. Although I'm also not actually studying, although I'm enrolled as a visiting student researcher. So I'm working in a research environment. As in Marta's case, I had this summer internship from MITEX, but then I extended my stay via the Global Link Research Award. So it involves certain peculiarities as focus on practice, focus on methodology, as I'm actually functioning as a research assistant, not a student. And also I also work as an assistant for one of the professors at university. So basically I teach undergraduates world politics. And I describe challenges I might face more as peculiarities of the new context to which you can adapt, regardless whether you are a young researcher or a student. If you know why you're here and what are your goals and what is your main aim, what do you want to achieve. And in my understanding, what really can be described as a challenge is to find accommodation and plan your expenses in times of economic crisis in Canada. That also depends on the province in which you're in, of course. So this is my experience.
Thank you. And Marto.
When I recall now my first days at U of A, I can say that my feelings were somewhat similar to those which I had when I was in my first year in Ukraine, because everything was new to me. I didn't know anyone here. I didn't know how classes would look like. I didn't know any of my professors, but at least I was in my city. And here, of course, such challenges like being so far away from home and parents who are still in Ukraine. And of course, language challenge made this experience more difficult. But I would say that I didn't feel lonely or scared. It was rather a feeling of excitement and being ready for everything to change. Yeah, and this is partly thankfully to Canada and Canadians in particular, because here and in Victoria, I met a lot of amazing people who did everything to support and help me. Everyone was so open and so ready to help to make my experience better. So as previous speakers mentioned, it was a challenge to figure out which courses I need to take, because in Ukraine we have a fixed schedule and fixed like classmates with whom we we stick till the end of the education. But here we need to figure out on our own which courses are available to us, which courses use our schedule. And yeah, it can be challenging. But overall, I think this experience is more exciting and interesting rather than scary or sad or whatever.
Well, thank you. Well, we're beginning to hear from all of the students the kinds of experiences that actually Dr. Darla Dierdorf writes about, the excitement of a new place and not really challenges, but little obstacles that you learn to overcome and help you become oriented to a new culture. Let's move on to looking more precisely at some of the similarities and differences between your home institution and where you're currently studying or working. We've already heard, for example, that a course selection is very. Maxim, please.
Okay. Could you please repeat the question, because I guess your internet connection just was a bit lagging.
Oh, sorry about that. What are some of the similarities and differences between studying, between your home institution and the process of studying, registering for courses, assignments, etc., and your current institution in Canada?
Okay.
Is my connection clearer now?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would start with the thank you very much for this question, because I was already wanting to tell a bit more about this. Let's start with the similarities. I would first outline the similarities mostly in the system of education and the way the courses are taught. they are being almost the same in all universities. However, the main differences are that in Ukraine we're still on the online system, and most assignments and professor-student interaction is happening online and only during the classes. And in Canada, particularly in the University of Alberta, it's already an auditory system of education, and all the interaction happens in person. And already some professors do not record their Zoom calls. Thus, there is no such opportunity just to skip the class and then just see the recap. However, regarding the assignments, I would say that my course in the University of Alberta would have a bit more of them. However, on the other hand, you can in Canada you can choose your classes which you take, and thus you can regulate the workload that you're receiving per semester. Having in Ukraine 7 or 8 courses, I would say is much heavier workload for students, especially in the first years of study. And in Canada, you can regulate that for each semester, and for each hard term, you can take some courses that are not from your field or some easier ones, and thus having a full and complex and substantial education in the end. On the other hand, I would say that mostly the systems are similar in terms of grading. However, the exam itself, of course, costs a bit less here in the University of Alberta than in Lviv Polytechnic National University. However, most of these differences might be actual for me because I am from technical university that is transferred right now to a classic university. That might seem a bit not substantial or not significant enough. However, even in Ukraine, there is a much difference between, for example, Lviv Polytechnic National University and Lviv National University, which is classical university. Thus, I would be really happy to hear from other students who were transferred from rather classical universities in Ukraine.
Thank you. Bogdan, back to you again.
Yeah, I have been studying only in computer science domain, so I can tell only about this specific field, but the main similarity between my previous university and this one is that all courses are based on the most professional researchers and innovators of the world. Even in Ukraine, our professor tried to find courses that was created by professors from Stanford, from Harvard University, and other top universities in the world. The main differences are, first of all, in Canada, professors are more willing to help you. They really do. You can ask whatever you want. They can find you a connection in a specific company for you to ask questions, to organize job interview or something like this. Also, the main differences is that in Canada, all our courses are project-based, and in my opinion, it demonstrates much better the student skills. Since in Ukraine, our goal was to memorize all the information and try to pass the exam. This type of courses are much more useful, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. Dimitra.
Yeah, I think the main similarity is that studying here and in Ukraine is tough. It's not an easy process. So someone might think that maybe somewhere might be easier, but in my experience, it's as difficult in Ukraine as it is here. So all of the courses require lots of work and dedication to have to achieve great results. And I think one additional similarity that Bogdan and Maxim didn't talk about is the organization of the whole learning process. So I'm not really sure how it works in other Ukrainian universities, but at Ukrainian Catholic University, where I'm studying at, we have a content management system which contains all of the course information related, like syllabus, lectures, some recordings, or some, like all of the tasks and assignments. Everything is submitted there and graded. So everything we have in a central place. And then we use Microsoft Teams for the internal communication and of course the email. The corporate email. Here at U of T, it's very similar. So we also have a content management system. It's called Quarkus, and everything, all of the content is put there. So which is very convenient because you have like all of the information there, and you don't need to like connect all of the dots around all of the chats or resources that you have. But the communication chat is different. Here at U of T, we use Discord, which I was very surprised because I used to think that Discord is just pure gaming platform for gamers, but here professors actually talk to students and discuss all of the related materials there on the Discord server. And we also have on Discord, we also have like channels where people gather based on their interests. So for example, like the music or music channel or some sports channel. So people actually join and discover there. And I guess also both universities, like in Ukraine and in Canada, have great corporate benefits. For example, at UKU, I got like free Grammarly access for all of our students. Grammarly is a service for correcting and helping with English sentences and building the whole speech. And at U of T, we get like premium Zoom, we get access to research libraries, which is very important because I'm reading quite a lot of research works right now, and usually access to them is restricted. You need to pay to get access to certain papers. And here at when I enter U of T credentials, I get access for free. At UKU, we also have like the unlimited storage or something. I really like these things, and I like that both universities offer. Yeah, I guess these are the main similarities, and from differences, I guess most of them Maxim and Bogdan already mentioned. Yeah, so I will just pass the stage to the girls.
Thank you. Katerina, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess my contribution will be more useful for postgraduate students because I work in a postgraduate environment, although I'm a senior undergrad. So basically, like I have to first describe my research environment a little bit first to explain the differences, right? So basically, I work in a social science side of environmental studies, which is in a lot of ways a revolutionary field. I deal with analyzing the spaces created for dialogue around, for intercultural dialogue around environmental issues that in these spaces, they can contribute towards eliminating marginalization, and I try to find the ways in which discourses can be altered to restore social justice. So talking about the differences in approaches to science in Canada and Ukraine, first and foremost, I'd list methodology. As my research group uses community-based research, which stands for a participatory approach when research projects are driven by community's priorities, and the community is involved in the project throughout the entire research process, from writing the project proposal to analyzing the results and then acting using the research outcomes. So it's also highly practical. As you imagine this positivist methodological approach, when there is no relationship of subject object between a researcher and a community which he studies, is quite radical for Ukrainian social science scholarship. In general, though, social sciences in Canada are much more critical. I'm not talking here only about my field. They're in general much more critical, which involves post-colonial, feminist, queer, etc. lenses while analyzing social phenomena. In Ukraine, critical social science, deconstruction of meaning, isn't that much of a thing yet, as well as the emancipatory character of social science. And same goes with all of the fields of scientific inquiry. So regardless whether you are in biology, environmental studies, musicology, or classical studies, everywhere in Canada, you won't be able to escape post-colonial lens of analysis when you find yourself in a position of necessity to reconsider Eurocentric approaches to a field of science and embrace diversity of systems of knowledge. I wish Ukrainian social science, at least scholarship, reach this stage of development where people deconstruct the concepts and they don't take them for granted. And I wish other fields of science as well acknowledged importance of diversity and inclusion. I suppose, though, it's not going to rapidly improve anytime soon, because post-war science is not a fertile environment for deconstruction, because the radical critique, the way it's possible in Canada, is possible only in places which are prosperous enough to let this revolutionary type of scholarship to exist. And the places which don't have to think about rapid post-war reconstruction, not deconstruction. So thank you.
Thank you. Marta.
Okay. Well, I see a lot of differences both in education system, in education itself, and in organization of education. So I study international relations in Ukraine, and here I study political science, which is a bit different. They are related, but like topics are not similar. So the main difference for me is that in Ukraine, at least in my Lviv University, we focus more on learning, memorizing, and then reproducing. But here we focus more on understanding and discussing. For example, in my international relations classes, we like our seminars are organized in this way. We have the material that we need to learn, and then instructor asks us questions and we answer them. So it's basically you just reproduce what you read at home. And here you need to really imply critical thinking to show that you understand what you have read, and to like really discuss. So I really like these discussion sections because it helps me to challenge myself to understand. And it really, I think it's more useful than just learning. So yeah, it's the first thing. Sorry. Another thing I think I really like when everything is well organized. So I often am really frustrated when in my university in Ukraine, I don't know how much grade can I receive for this assignment, or which assignments will we do during this course. And we have electronic system in Ukraine, but it doesn't work really well. So I enjoy our bare tracks here and a class system because all is in one place, and I can see my grade, I can see all assignments, I can see all exam dates. So yeah, it's really great. And I like that we have syllabus for every class. So we see like how will we be graded and what could we expect, and like what topics will be covered. So yeah, it's really great. Another thing is a research part, because in Ukraine, it's not really widely spread, this research part. Some people do researches, but like, for example, in University of Alberta, this research is really commonly implemented in education. For example, for master's degree, you can choose either course-based or thesis-based program, or in undergrad, you can choose honors program in which you write your thesis. In Ukraine, people write thesis, I guess, in all programs, but they're not really like focused on research. It just you write something for the sake of writing. Yeah. So I really like these things, and I hope that most of them can be implemented in our Ukrainian education.
I guess I would also add to the differences that I noticed is that students specialize here in Canada. Students specialize in very multidisciplinary fields, and they combine like all sorts of majors and specialize in a very unique environment. Whereas in Ukraine, I didn't notice that happen a lot. And I guess also an interesting observation is that my university, for example, often talks about how many people come from different regions of Ukraine to highlight the diversity of people. And here the university talks about how many people from different countries all over the world came to study. So this is just a bit a different scale of people, and also adding to the point that Katarina mentioned about the diversity.
Thank you. Would anyone like to add anything else to this? Maxim?
Sure. So I would probably add to the Marta statement that here in Canada in particular, and the University of Alberta in particular, the research focus is much more centered on research than on study. That is I would say also one of the main differences, because, for example, I am also enrolled as a MITEX research intern here in the University of Alberta, and for example, for me as a research intern, I can see many other students who are also interns. And if I weren't enrolled, I would be able, as a student, also to enroll into some another laboratory, or, for example, to work with some professors as a research assistant, also like a last year computer science course student. And that is the main difference, because, for example, in Ukraine, people in computer science courses tend to work in their last years of study, and here the students are mainly tending to work in the field of research. That implies that they might stay in this field, and this promotes science. This promotes more understanding of how the research globally is being conducted. And I would say that I personally like this system a bit more.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I think it's important. It's sometimes when you're in the middle of a system, you always see its positive nature, especially if it's new to you. Maybe you could reflect for a moment on what your preparation in Ukraine has offered you, has enabled you to be able to study here in Canada with, it seems, in very, with a fair amount of ease. You're all doing well. What has Ukraine offered you? What were the advantages of the way you were prepared? Maxim.
Okay, so let me start in this. I would say that the Ukrainian system of education is mostly focused on theoretical knowledge, especially in technical fields. Of course, this stems from previous days when our universities were still, when Ukraine was still in the in the USSR, when all the universities were mostly focused on learning some things for the sake of learning. However, the theoretical knowledge really helps me here, because whereas in University of Alberta, most of the computer science courses are practical based, and they do contain much more practical work, and they require more practical knowledge that I might receive in Lviv Polytechnic National University. However, after some conversation with the other students, the theoretical base that I do remember about different aspects of computer science, I might feel like I am more, I would say I am a bit more fluent in it than I would be if I studied from the very beginning in the University of Alberta. And this preparation really helped me, and this really helps understand the next steps the one might take to undergo for a research.
Okay, thank you. Bogdan.
This is unpopular opinion, I guess, but students from Ukraine have much wider experience. For example, in computer science, me, Dmitro, or Maxim, we can create a website, we can run a server, we can visualize the data, we can analyze the data, we can create mathematical models, to everything in computer science. Students from Canada are mainly focused on a very narrow specialization, and sometimes it's important to understand how math, for example, works, but in the same time, you need to write great papers to explain your ideas. You need to write codes that everyone can read. And in the University of Toronto, in Canada especially, some students are genius of math, but they cannot write great code or communicate in some sense. Yeah, I guess it's very important, and it's main benefits that I got from Ukrainian system.
Thank you. Dimitra.
Oh, it's a very difficult question to answer. I think also to the point that Bogdan mentioned, we are really well prepared. So what I understood is that like, of course, each of the systems has its pros and cons, but it's not to say that our education system is worse or something like that, or it prepares worse students than here in Canada. Actually, everywhere, both here and in Ukraine, we have students who are not willing to take classes or just do it for, like, they do not really care about the studying process. And they also, in both countries, they have students who really are performing at the top, and they are achieving lots of things. So when I came here, I used to think that everyone's here is as brilliant as it can be, the best out of the best in the whole world. But actually, it's not like that. It's a whole society. A lot of students study here, and there are lots of people with very different skills and experiences. And Ukrainian students are fitting very well into this picture. And from what I saw, they are performing among the best students. Together with the Canadians, so they are performing as good as the Canadian students. So that's something to say that our education system is strong enough to be able to compete.
Great, thank you. Katerina.
Yeah, well, so I would say it depends heavily on the academic communities that we compare both in Ukraine and in Canada, because the results can be drastically different. Depending on which university in Ukraine we take and which research environment in Canada. I would name, though, in general, what I noticed, not only while being a young researcher here, but also being a teaching assistant, teaching undergrads, is the stress tolerance in Ukrainian students is much higher. So ability to work in tense circumstances when the deadlines are well, rough, and when when you don't have enough of the, let's say, information about the organizational aspects of the task. So I would say I'm not sure in which light it shows Ukrainian higher education system. Is it good or bad that Ukrainian students are have much more stress tolerance? But this is it, and it helps a lot. So in a lot of situations when Canadian students could have told that I'm so tired, I can't do that, I wouldn't have understood what the problem is. So also critical thinking and discussions. I think this is what heavily depends on the context in Ukraine, because in my course of studies and at National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, discussions are like the most important part of the course. So like the willingness to participate in them is a very important skill that should be trained from the first year studies. And here a lot of students, they're not encouraged to participate in discussions because they're not evaluated. What is evaluated are big written assignments and tests, but they're not evaluated on their oral contribution during the classes, and that makes them unwilling to learn how to formulate their point of view and how to defend it. And this is why during my classes I can face a situation where I ask a student a question and nobody would answer, although it's just like a question for discussion. Now no response can be right or wrong. People just are not willing to voice their opinion. I would also say that probably analyzing cultures of Ukraine and the culture, the post-colonial culture of Canada, we can say that in Ukraine, a matter of respect between the professor and the students is much higher. So let's say, taking this particular case, when students don't want to speak during the class in Ukraine, we would just to not, just to respect the professor. So things like that are very important. I wouldn't say that here in Canada, students like disrespect their professors or something, but it's highly evident that in Ukraine, we probably have either highly influenced by the Soviet time or just like the peculiarity of our culture, because it's quite different, this special like hierarchy between students and professors, while in Canada, they're more of an equal relationship. Thank you.
Thank you. Marta.
Yeah, thank you. So although I mentioned a lot of differences in education system, I'm not saying that I don't like our system in Ukraine or my professors. In fact, I'm really thankful to my university and professors, because they were always encouraging us to take part in exchange programs or different programs of studying abroad. They were always encouraging us to learn English, to be open-minded, to take part in different conferences, to take part in different programs, because it would make us like better members of society, I would say. Yeah, and so we can't say that all professors in Canada are brilliant. Of course, it's not like that. Of course, they are different everywhere. And I would say that Maxim has mentioned that in Ukraine we have like 7 or 8 courses, and here 5 is max. And like when I say my fellow students here that I have 8 classes in Ukraine, 5 here, they are really surprised, because they say I have 4 here and it's too much for me. So I guess this workload in Ukraine have prepared us for this like pressure, education pressure. So I would say that this is why education for all of us here is not extremely difficult, because we are prepared.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm sure the audience will agree we've had a lot of very rich ideas, and I thank the participants. I'd like to change direction for a minute, and then we'll get to some of the audience's questions. But could you tell us a bit about your impressions of student relationships in Canada as opposed to in Ukraine? Have you met Canadian students? Do you hang out? Or do you maintain your ties with fellow students from Ukraine, or both? Maxim.
Okay, let me start. I personally maintain my ties with my friends from Ukraine and with the students that I've met during my studies. And I would say that in Ukraine, the student groups tend to make a more coherent community than here in Canada. For example, in courses here, the students are loosely connected and mostly do not communicate between themselves as real friends, as those people who have overcome through fire and wind through all 3 or 4 years of their study. Because most of the students tend to take different courses at different times, and thus we have to make connections here, but not based on knowledge, not based on the course, but based on the interests. However, I would agree that that the variety of clubs present in the University of Alberta really helps this measure. I personally have met a couple of students, however, in I would say mostly technical field, and we all know that technical students don't really tend to talk to strangers, and I personally was feeling a bit like a stranger here, willing to talk, because that was competitive programming class, and I guess nobody just was really keen on speaking with other people there. On the other hand, many other students tend to be really open, and I would say that the interests of the students are also different. For example, in Ukraine, many student companies and many friends tend to have a long conversation between themselves, also discussion, also the course continuation, because we're all enrolled in the same course, and the way of discussion might change in terms of formal or informal atmosphere. Here in Canada, I would say that the contents of the studies, I wouldn't say it's taboo, like for my perception. However, it is not widely common to talk about the contents of your classes and of the lectures you just heard, or being just giving an overview of the lecture you just heard is also normal. And I would say that I like both systems. However, I would like to see something in between, because the lack of coherence among the student group might give you a feeling of a bit of a loneliness and the absence of friends. However, it diversifies people's spheres of their communication, their friends, and they're all from different fields, they're all from different faculties, and might be also from different universities. And I would like to sum up with another statement about the willing to participate in discussion on courses, because the way students relate to each other and professors is based on a bit different approaches. And I would say that is just maybe is done through historical differences in our system of education, also in the ways the education itself goes. And I would say I am happy to participate in both systems. And this is what I would say is really beneficial, to see how another students see the way of studying in other countries, because I guess everybody among the participants has talked to another students in Canada about their studies in Ukraine, and they know the reaction they have. Marta has mentioned the reaction they have on the amount of classes we have. However, I would like to hear also the experience of another participants. It might be only 1 out of 1 experience type.
Okay, thank you. Bogdan, Dmytro, Katarina, Marta, you can keep your comments a little brief. I see that Oksana has her hand up, and there are some other questions in the meeting chat, but we do want everyone to still have a chance. Bogdan, please.
Yeah, I agree with Maxim that students in Canadian universities communicate less than, for example, in Ukraine. But I guess the main reason of this is that Canadian universities are more cultural diverse. Some students from the Canadian university where I'm studying right now prefer to communicate more with students with the same cultural and traditional background, and it's understandable. But since it turned out that it's quite easy to communicate and befriend with students from all over the world. For example, right now, I have a friend who is from the United States, and we communicate great. On the same time, I'm continuing to communicate with my friends and colleagues from Ukraine, and I'm trying to find a balance between Ukrainians and international students or other people.
Thank you, Dmytro.
Yeah, I would agree with the guys saying that the classes here are very different every time for each course. And my experience was, it was a bit of a shock to me when I first went for one of my classes. We needed to gather a group of a couple of people, and I thought that everyone knows each other from somewhere, but it turned out that actually no one ever met before. And it was very difficult for people to form groups on their own because they don't know anyone. And the solution that the students found was just create a channel where each student put their experience and what they like, just like an introduction, and then people were reaching out to people who interested them, and they made interviews to see who would be included in the team and who's not. And that was like very shocking to me. But thankfully we found the team, and it was great, but it was interesting. And what I've noticed, since the classes and the people in your class are every time they are different, students develop more tight connections to each other at the research labs. So, for example, I'm working with the SIGKIT research lab, and the group of students is the same. So we communicate a lot together. We have the retreats, and the connection there is much closer because you work, you see these people constantly. So that's an alternative.
Thank you, Dmitra. And I would like to the one who is the next. Katerina, please.
Yeah, Katerina, I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was not sure that I'm the next one. Okay. Well, talking about relationships in academic environments between students and colleagues in research environments, primary thing I would say about Canada is that here people differentiate heavily between work and private spheres of their lives, much more than Ukrainians do. And I guess a good tip would be not to expect your colleagues, especially from past secondary level of studies, to become your friends in a way how Ukrainians perceive friendship. Apart from the other reasons listed by my colleagues now, like cultural diversity, etc., also Canadians want to establish close relationships in general, disclosing their emotions and all the other things that Ukrainians are used to do in their friendships, because it's very probable that they will move to a different province upon having completed a stage of the academic career or for whatever reason. So people are highly mobile here, much more than in Ukraine, and prone to building a stone wall between work and private life. At the same time, networking here is extremely important and can secure you a firm position in a society and a lot of advantages if you address socializing as a necessary part of your work. So thus investing weekly in coffee meetings with your work colleagues and people who you can potentially productively interact with to develop your career. So these are all of these things that are perceived as entertainment in Ukraine, coffee meetings, these Christmas party, work Christmas parties, and everything. It is like you are not required, although I know in some of the cases, supervisors will highly encourage their students and members of their lab to participate in these socializing events. So because this is very important. So how it benefited me, except like apart from the just pleasant benefits like getting tickets to a concert from the professor I know just because I befriended him, although I don't work for him. It's just the networking, the people who you know, they have other people whom they know, and then you just meet them and you talk about research and you talk about what you're interested in, and you just do make this, like, let's say, work friends, as they call as they are used to in Canada. But also, for example, I was able to find an accommodation both times in this way through networking. So it's highly important.
Thank you. Marta.
Yeah. So I agree with everything said before, and I would like to add that in Ukraine, we have fixed classmates and we are in the same group during the whole education. But here in Canada, everyone have different classes. So you see people only from time to time. In this case, you need to put more effort to make friends with someone, because in other case, after class, people just disappear. If you don't catch them, you don't have an opportunity to make friends. So I like in this way Ukrainian like groups more, because you have people that you like stick with them till the end, and you have an opportunity to make friends with them. Also, previous speakers talked about diversity, and for someone it might be a problem, but personally I like this diversity. And although I met a lot of Ukrainians here and we formed like a little community for us, but on the other hand, I like that I have friends with people like from Korea, from France, from China, all over the world. And this really helps to be more open-minded, to see different things in the world, to understand different things. And yeah, I also agree with what Katerina said about networking. It's really important both in Ukraine and in Canada and all over the world, because networking can really help you in surprisingly different ways. It can help you find your work, accommodation, friends, projects, everything. So yeah.
Thank you. I think we'll move to Oksana, and then I'll ask Olena from ULIT to sum up the questions if they haven't already been answered. Oksana, please.
Again, I want to greet everyone today. Thank you for the invitation. And I want to speak on behalf of an experienced teacher. So I'm teaching starting from primary school to secondary school. Maybe I am just far from higher education, but I would like to say that nowadays, the main thing that we do, we teach the younger learners to be self-educated and to continue their self-education. Now I'm just not feeling like a teacher, I'm feeling like a supporter, the person to whom they apply. And I would like to say that I'm not demanding my students to do home tasks or join my lessons online. They're joining themselves. I don't know how does it function, because the junior ones are demanding their parents just unlimited internet and they want to study. They want to participate in the lesson. And I think that just in a pair of years, there won't be any differences between the students in Canada and in Ukraine. There won't be any any boundaries, any borders between them, because now the younger people, they're learning to educate themselves. And that's why I think just whether the education is better or just maybe it's poor, I think it depends on the person itself. Whether the person just is goal-oriented and just oriented on its future job, he is seeking the information, just finding everything and learning in internet. Internet just opens all the possibilities for younger students just to be educated. And I think maybe in future there won't be any borders between just universities. The students could study simultaneously in some universities around the world. Just I'm sure of it. Just because I see that we got just such period, this period of hard period of war in Ukraine, it shows that the people will get a possibility to study where they want and to choose any teacher they want. I think just it's not won't be a role of teacher, it will be a role of a supporter, advisor, like this. Just the teacher will be like this, just not the one who demands results or something like that else. Our role is just to help the personality to get what he or she wants in life. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, one of my professors in Ukraine said that education provides tools and opportunities, and how you use them depends on the person, so on the student, him or herself.
Thank you. Well, I see there's so much more that could be said, and we have an eager audience who's still hanging in with us. I'm going to, we did advertise it for 1 hour. And so in fairness, I think we want to bring this to a close. I'm going to ask Olena Sivachenko to bring our morning to a close, and perhaps invite the students to participate again toward the end of next semester, just to see how things might have changed for them. Olena.
Thank you, Olenko. And we do have 2 questions in our chat. So they were posed by Alina Chumachenko and Darina Ponomarenko. And these questions, these are the questions they're asking about the challenges that you faced or encountered when you came to Canada, and how you overcame them. But I believe we addressed already these questions at the very beginning of our roundtable discussion. So I am encouraging Alina and Darina to watch our videos. Probably they were just a little bit late. So very soon I will post the video of this roundtable on our YouTube channel, and I will advertise that link. So those who were not able to see the roundtable discussion from the very beginning, so you're more than welcome to watch them, to watch it online. And well, with this, I want to call it a day. So to wrap up and to thank everyone, first of all, our participants, of our speakers, for sharing your experiences with the wider audience. And I thank you very much for everyone who got interested and participated today and attended our roundtable, our meeting. So, and hopefully in the future, as Olenka already mentioned, we will be able to organize closer to the end of the other semester, organize one more session, more roundtable, and to compare what changed, or probably what new experiences our students got. Thank you so much to everyone for your attention, and see you in our other roundtable discussions and webinars. Thank you very much.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you.
Thank you for organizing.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
for organization,
Bye.
and thank you for this interesting topic.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.
Have a nice day.